Hey, this is Edlan, and I'm a drum and bass producer from Amsterdam, Netherlands, and welcome to my course for DNB Academy. Just let me go. In my course, I will really talk about the production of liquid drum and bass, about songwriting, about vocal processing. I will show how I make my drums and how I pitch correct the vocals, how I put sound, how I make my sounds, a little bit of sound design as well, and also mixing and basically creating a track from scratch. Alright guys, welcome to the live stream everyone. My name is Edlan. I'm a Dutch drum and bass producer releasing stuff on, Liquidity. Wearing a t-shirt of it right now. Very old one though. But thanks all for tuning in. Today we're going to take a look at a track that I've done on UKF's label Pilot. And it's called Whatever You Said. It is one of my most streamed songs of all time. And today we're just gonna go through the track and see all the things that I've done for it and how I've done things for this track and how I made it sound like how it is right now released. Let's get into it right away. Starting off with track 1 here. It's a very simple song. As you can see, there are not a lot of channels or sounds going on. It's just the basic idea is there, and there's not a lot of little things to add it up. It's just a very basic track. So starting off with track 1, it's a loop, which is very recognizable for the song. And what I've done here is just basically loaded in that sound and only played the first 2 notes of it. So the original sample sounds like this. And it has a different groove than the version for this track. And maybe I would do a VIP of Whatever You Said at some point, and I might use the whole loop instead of this cut version, but nothing to be confirmed yet because I don't know if I'm gonna do it or if the label wants it. So yeah, just going through the track, it starts off with just its first notes being looped, and then it plays the last 2 chords, so it's going like this. So it's just a chopped up piano loop. And then processing, it's very easy. What I've done here in the mixer is this is a very old way how I did things back in the day. I might get back to this preset at some point because it's very easy to use for stuff. So what I've done is I have all the drums, all the instruments, and all the bass sounds and all the ambient sounds all grouped together into buses. So I can easily group everything together, get some quick balance, and also process every instrument together if I want to. Which is very convenient if you're mixing down tracks. But lately I haven't been using this setup anymore due to some gear that I got in the studio that makes it a little bit inconvenient. But I might get back to it to see if I can find a way to make this easier. So what I have done to the piano is not a lot. I've done some EQing, I've removed some low end here just to get some more clean low end, so there's more space for the sub. And then I have another EQ, which is just a filter, so it will automate. And I need to check which band it was. I think it was this one. Or I think it's this one. This is the one, yeah. And what it does is it just is an automated filter to create some excitement for the arrangement, which is a common thing to do in EDM production. So yeah, that's the piano, that's the main theme. And then there's another piano sound that I've layered on top of it, which is also, all these loops come from Looperman, which is a great site to check out. This is from a long time ago, so you can find the same sample basically. But yeah, there's another piano here. This one is from a sample pack that I got, and it goes like this. Yeah, and that's basically the whole theme for whatever you said, which is pretty cool, which is also a sample. And I think there's not a lot of stuff wrong with sampling in the beginning, as long as you don't just use the whole sample and then don't try to do something unique with it. So this is a little bit indeed more on the lazy side, because I didn't really edit it a lot, but I did do this. Like I looped it here, and there's also some processing on there. I added a little bit of EQ, mainly removed some low end here, just to get some more space for the bass and the kicks. Added a very lazy reverb here. I usually recommend using buses for it, but since I really wanted to have a specific sound on the reverb, I used Fruity Reverb 2. It's not an amazing reverb, I gotta say, in my opinion, but for this project it worked fine, and for this sound. And then I had another EQ, which is also a filter that will be automated during the track. Then we have, that's basically piano. And so yeah, this is all routed to the instruments master, how I called it here. So they're all grouped together into one fader, which is very convenient. And that's basically the melodic parts, and together they just sound like this. And that's all the whole basic vibe of the track basically. And also there's another melodic element in here, which is the vocal sample, which is very recognizable, and that's this one. So these are from a track that I have sampled, and I chopped it up so much that it's unrecognizable. I cannot play the original version due to copyright reasons, but I can definitely show how I processed it. So it's somehow in ambience. So what I've done here is I used a compressor, and all I did was get a very immediate attack and release. I didn't even mess with these. There's not even a release on there. And there's just some subtle compression going on. But, subtle, I don't say. It's compressing quite a lot, basically. It's making it all very flat, which is what I wanted, because I didn't want to have a very dynamic sound, because it's a sample. And somehow my EQ is all the way here, and it's looking kind of strange, but this is the EQ curve that I had. I don't know about this here. It's an old project. I was doing quite some messy stuff back then, still do. And all I did was boost some mids and remove loads of highs and some low frequencies, because they should, I think always the low frequencies should be reserved for the bass and the kicks and the frequencies that belong there. Then there's a flanger on there with a preset, I think, where I just messed around, which really added something to make it even sounding wider. It gets that little width to it, and it had a very specific sound. Then there's this plugin that does not load anymore, or it doesn't show up anymore, because I don't use this plugin anymore because of that reason. So sadly I cannot show the settings on the delay, but it's basically just a very simple delay plugin. And if you know something about delays, it's basically, yeah, it has to sound like this. So it's a ping pong delay, and it is on a specific time signature that works very well, and I always remove some low end with the settings on there. There are some great videos about how to set up a delay properly. And in my main course that I've done for DNB Academy, I also go through how I properly use a delay. So, and then again, also another filter here, which basically automates it during the track. Then those are basically most of the melodic parts. Then I think there's another sound here, which is this little plug. Which is a sound that I've made or edited in Rounds, which is a reactor plugin. I rarely use this tool though. It's pretty cool. It's like a analog and digital synth in one. And there was like this plug that I needed to create, which I made here using a preset and just switching it up a little bit to make it sound like how I wanted it to sound. So it's basically let's see what it is. Somehow it's on oscillator 7. It is just some sawtooth waves with a filter on there, automated. This is basically the same principle as that mouse plug. You can look it up on YouTube. It's all around the place how to make one, and it's pretty easy. It's just a couple of sawtooth waves and a filter that quickly cuts off, and that will create a sound like this. Yeah, don't mind my piano skills at the moment. Yeah, that's basically it for that sound. And then we also have the bass, which is a pretty simple bass again. As you can hear, that sounds pretty cheesy, but it works very well in the track itself. It's just not a lot of harmonics going on or movement, because I think movement in the bass is cool, but not for every Liquid track. So I usually have 2 monitors, and that's the reason why I sometimes have this plugin all the way to the left. But there we go, I wrapped it. Another thing that I've done was I added I had this sub bass, which is just a sine wave with a little bit of distortion on there. Or not even, oh yeah, it's on here, it's distorted here in the master bus. So everything comes together and gets a little saturated. So that also counts for the other sound. And there's a compressor on here, which is basically just sidechain. It is a glue. And I had no specific reason to use the glue, but that was the sidechain compressor that I used back then. It's pretty annoying this, because I usually have 2 screens and then it's on the screen there, but I cannot have all the screens sadly on the live stream. Maybe at some point we can on YouTube. That would be cool. So yeah, this is what I did. It's just some sidechaining. So I've set up sidechaining here in the processing. So I routed the kick drum from this track into this bass master here. So it sidechains. And then there's also an EQ here, which I don't know what it does exactly. I think it's another sidechain principle going on here, or with just a very subtle boost on the subs. But yeah, then the bass, the second layer, which is this one, is very cheesy, and all it is just this vulgar preset in Massive, or this wavetable. And I haven't done a lot of processing on here, as I can see. I only had some envelope going on the on the sound itself, on the velocity. So there's not even a filter on this. It's basically the cheesiest sound you can imagine. And somehow together it created the right frequencies that was needed for this song. So this tells a lot about that you don't really need to do very complex sound design unless you're making neurofunk. Then yeah, of course. But for Liquid, you don't need a lot of knowledge about sound design and making amazing sounds. You could if you make a specific sound of Liquid, like what Alex Perez does or some other guys on 1985, for example. But I mainly work sample based, and yeah, this is basically just one of the most simplest tracks that I've done like forever. I think this is just the simplest tune of all of them. And then that's the bass, and then we have some other elements, which I think is the most complex here, which is the drums. So the drums are basically this. And as you can see, that's the most complex layer of all of them. And the drums are basically sorted like this. So we're going to start from top to bottom. We have a ride here on every first, like on every beat, which creates just something very very groovy. It really adds, I think rides really add some harmonics in your mix that are very needed if you want some proper energy going on. So I always like to use a ride on each beat to fill up a certain frequency range. And then I have this is from my house sample pack actually, and it's just playing a groove. So it's like this, which is actually the very basics of like a good shuffle. And there's also some swing on everything. It's on the 28%, as you can see. And this little groove here is basically what makes those down wall tunes so groovy. I think that's like one of the things you always should keep in mind. These hits on especially shakers or ghost snares, that's the groove that you want to look for to get that sound. And together with the swing, it adds, it makes that groove that's very recognizable for those tunes. And I have a little hat here, which has a small little reverb for some reason. And I think that's because it actually has one. Yeah, it has one in the sample itself. And that reverb I thought sounded very nice because it was filling up some frequencies. Then we have a hat here. And this hat is actually playing on every off of this one. So it's like filling up everything, and then it's like when you have a shaker, like you have a tambourine, you go forward and then backwards. And one of these hats is representing forward, and one is representing backwards. Also counts for shakers. Like they make this. Yeah, sorry. There's no other way to explain it than to do it very dirty with this. Sorry, guys. I'm still 23, so I have this sense of humor that I find funny. Or not really, actually. It's not really funny. Never mind. So when you have like a shaker, it goes forwards, backwards, forward, backwards. And that's what I want to replicate with these two hats. So I have one that does the forward and one that does the backward. And then like this, it will create a sound. And then usually one is louder than the other. And that creates some nice little shakers within your DAW. And then I also cut it up a little bit, I think. Not even. I didn't even really adjust the sample a lot, but sometimes I do. Then we have the kick. We have this very tight little kick it's from a sample pack from way back from Looperman or Loop Masters. I think it was Lynx that make this pack, and it has some very big kicks and snares in there that I used all the time, and I still do sometimes because they are just very nice layers to use. So I stack this, and I have this little I don't know where it's actually being used right now, but they're in there for some reason. Then I have another kick. This kick really has that low oomph in the very low end, which is very nice. Like this very low frequency range, as you can see. And I really like that with this kick, so I used that as well. And I have this very tight kick, which has a lot of static here, a lot of noise, which is being used for the transient of your kick, so it sounds very punchy. And then there's another layer, which is this one, and this one has a little bit of a width to it. It has a very, even though it's mono, I think, it has this rumble going on this frequency range here in the mids, which I really liked, and stacked on top of each other, it sounds like this. And I really like that kick, so it worked like that.